In the opening scenes, we see a brother and sister hiding in a closet. In the present, 21-year-old Tim tells a therapist about his nightmare from the past. The doctor concludes that Tim has coped with his psychological trauma and is ready to be discharged from the hospital. Meanwhile, Tim's sister, 23-year-old Kaylee, along with her fiancé Michael Dumont, observes an auction of antique items. The next lot is a centuries-old mirror. It is in excellent condition, except for a crack in the lower right corner. The doctor asked the patient if his sister would come for him. Unlike Tim, Kaylee managed on her own. According to the doctor, it's crucial for the brother and sister to mend their relationship now. As promised, Kaylee met her brother. They stopped at a restaurant for a bite. Kaylee had already picked out a few rental apartments for her brother. He would live with her and her fiancé for the first time. Suddenly Kaylee said she found it. Tim pretended not to understand what she was talking about. Kaylee explained that she had been tracking it through various auctions for many years and finally found it. They have less than a week before the mirror goes to a new owner. Once the brother and sister made a promise to destroy it. Next, the events take us back 11 years. Marie and Alan Russells moved into a new house with their son and daughter. It seemed like the perfect place for the family. In the present, Tim refused to live with his sister and Michael, preferring to stay in a hotel. Before leaving, Kaylee reminded her brother that he promised not to forget but didn't keep his word. Despite everything, Kaylee is determined to see it through. Then events take us back 10 years again. One night, Alan couldn't sleep and went to the kitchen for a snack. At one point he felt a presence and entered the room where the antique mirror hung. Alan turned on the light but found nothing strange. In the present, Kaylee approached the mirror in the middle of the night. When she turned back, she saw her father. It was just a nightmare. This has happened far from the first time. The next day, Michael told Kaylee that someone sent pictures of victims of a long-ago crime from her computer instead of documentation. Kaylee didn't know how to explain it. She only hinted that it's connected to her and Tim's dark past and asked her fiancé to be patient. Finally, Kaylee came face to face with her childhood fear. She knows that over the years, the mirror has become hungry. In the reflection, Kaylee saw figures in sheets. The mirror has the ability to distort reality, inducing fear and driving people insane. Kaylee made sure the mirror to be delivered to her parents' house. When Kaylee received a call from Tim, who had just bought a phone, she said she would be waiting for him in that very house. In the past, Marie noticed that all the flowers next to the mirror had withered. Meanwhile, Alan began hearing strange whispers. Once when the brother and sister were playing in the yard, Kaylee looked into the window and saw her father with some woman. At dinner, Kaylee asked the father who the woman was. Alan didn't understand what she was talking about. In the present, the brother and sister returned to their childhood home. Kaylee brought a dog that she didn't even name. Tim decided to look around since he hadn't been here for 10 years. While Kaylee was in an orphanage until she turned 18, the house remained empty. Tim, on the other hand, spent all this time in a psychiatric hospital. The brother and sister brought the mirror into the house. Kaylee had prepared video cameras in advance to capture the entire process. She also set up a trap for the mirror. It's time to start. Kaylee gave her brother a chance to leave, but he decided to stay for now. On camera, Kaylee explained safety measures. Everything in the house is arranged so that the mirror cannot harm the people inside. The essence of the experiment is to prove that the mirror has supernatural power. In its 400-year official history, it claimed the lives of at least 45 people. In advance, Kaylee asked Michael to call her every hour as one of the safety measures. Each new owner of the mirror has perished under strange and frightening circumstances. Kaylee is determined to do everything to break this chain and prove that their father is innocent. According to the investigation, he was the one who took Marie's life. Tim still doesn't believe in this mirror horror story. 10 years ago they were children, and perhaps invented this story to justify their father. To save her sister, Tim was forced to neutralize their father. However, Kaylee is determined to prove that it's not true. They all were not aware of their actions, being under the influence of evil forces. Tim asked why they just don't break the mirror. Kaylee was surprised that her brother doesn't remember how they tried to do it in childhood. There is only one documented attempt to break the mirror, and it ended very tragically for that person. Tim refused to break the mirror now just because firstly his sister will be fined, and secondly he wants Kaylee to shatter her illusion and let go of the past. But Kaylee has completely different plans. Using a timer and an anchor, which are interconnected, Kaylee intends to destroy the mirror. However, she knows that it will defend itself by any means. In the past, Alan worked late at his computer in his office room. At some point, he started having horrifying visions that quickly stopped. Seeing books on the floor, Alan thought that the son and daughter were playing here against his prohibition. However, they denied it. But Alan constantly hears their voices at night, so he asked the children to stop. As bait for the mirror, Kaylee wants to use the dog. In the past, young Kaylee and Tim notice that their beloved pet became lethargic. Marie doesn't like that her husband keeps a gun at home. But Alan feels more secure this way. At one point Marie heard the husband insult her, although he denied it. That same night, Marie woke up to the dogs barking. The pet behaved aggressively and bit her. Marie heard her husband talking to someone in his office room. Lately Alan has changed a lot, leading to conflicts between spouses. Of course the children hear this. One day when Alan was about to go golfing with a client, he reminded his son and daughter not to enter his office room. The dog constantly barked under the room door. At some point Marie couldn't stand it and let the dog inside, locking it. When Alan returned, they all discovered that the pet was missing. In the present, Tim claimed that it was not like that. In reality their dog didn't disappear but got sick. Later, Alan took the dog to the vet and told his wife on the phone that things were very bad. Obviously the brother and sister remember the past in different ways. Tim insists that his sister just believes what she wants to believe. In the past, the arguments between the spouses became more frequent. Alan accused his wife of going crazy. She constantly says that someone is in the house and that the water is poisoned. Kaylee is sure she saw a woman from the mirror in the father's office room, while Tim is convinced that the father had an affair. Tim just wants his sister to get better. He released the dog, thinking it was cruel. Tim went through the same thing but he got help. Now Kaylee has to take this step, or she will repeat the fate of their parents. In the room is just an ordinary antique mirror, and everything else is their childhood fantasies. Tim persuaded the crying sister to leave with him right now. Kaylee was ready to believe her brother, but when they returned to the room, they found that all the flowers had withered. So Kaylee was right. Tim doesn't want to believe in this. Kaylee received a call from her fiancé as an hour had passed. But she knows that it might not have been Michael, since they are in the mirror's influence zone. Going outside, panicking Tim called his treating doctor but couldn't get through. Tim didn't immediately realize that he hadn't even left the house. It was an illusion created by the mirror. Kaylee is sure that together they will win. In the past, the girl saw her mother standing in front of the mirror for a long time. Moreover, Marie started drinking a lot while her husband was missing somewhere. When Marie asked the children to tell her about the woman in the house, Tim confirmed that he had seen her on the stairs yesterday. The boy believes that the woman lives in the room where the mirror hangs. After telling the son and daughter to go to bed, Marie went to her husband's office room. She no longer doubts that her husband is having an affair. In desperation, Marie threw things off the table. The most painful for her is to look at the family photograph. They were once happy. Suddenly Marie saw that her reflection in the mirror had a life of its own. Hearing a scream, the son and daughter ran here. Marie was no longer in control of herself. Frightened, the brother and sister ran away, locking themselves in their room. At that moment Alan arrived and saw his wife pounding on the door. Marie approached her husband and attacked him. Alan could barely restrain her. The family's life turned into a nightmare. Alan was about to call an ambulance, but he heard an ominous whisper on the phone. Suddenly the decision came to Alan to keep his wife locked up in their room. The brother and sister were very frightened. The past intertwined with the present. Adult Tim began to notice strange things happening near the mirror. However, Kaylee didn't pay attention to it, taking it for granted. In the past, Alan explained to his son and daughter that mom is very sick, so they are forbidden to enter the parents' room. In the present, Kaylee told her brother to eat something, or else the mirror would starve them. Tim put the apple on the kitchen cupboard next to the light bulbs for the lamps. The mirror is capable of driving people crazy. Many years ago Tim stood in front of it for a long time, as if enchanted. Kaylee called him but in vain. In the present, when she picked up an apple off the kitchen cupboard and took a bite, it turned out to be a light bulb. Of course it was another illusion. The brother and sister better stick together. In the past, Kaylee and Tim heard strange sounds coming from the parents' room. There is no food in the fridge at all, but Alan didn't care. He sat in his office room for hours in front of the mirror. When Alan learned that Kaylee had violated the ban and entered their room, he flew into a rage. From now on, they must not leave the house without his knowledge. Kaylee repeatedly tried to call a doctor, but all doctors spoke with the same voice and the same words. That's why the girl brought the grandfather, Alan's father, to the house. However, Alan assured that everything was fine, just Marie was a bit off. Not suspecting anything, the grandfather left. From now on, the brother and sister will have to become much stronger. In the present, the mirror tries to mislead its victims into falling into their own traps. But Kaylee is not so easily fooled. As expected, all the electronics in the house went out of order. Kaylee knew this would happen. Over the years, she'd prepared herself for any outcome. In the past, Tim entered the father's office room in the middle of the night and, seeing a sinister entity, ran away. The mirror creates illusions to mislead its victims. Seeing a sinister entity in the form of her mother, Kaylee wounded it with a shard. The next moment she saw Michael in front of her. Tim ran up, and what he saw horrified him. Kaylee still believes that it's just another trick of the mirror. Suddenly Kaylee received a call from Michael, as exactly 1 hour had passed. Pointing the camera at the body and realizing that it was being recorded, Kaylee guessed that it was not an illusion. She had actually taken her fiancé's life. Tim took his sister out of the house and called the police. Kaylee was in a detached state. It took Tim a few minutes to bring her to her senses. Now all they have to do is wait for help and for the trap to work. Suddenly the light came on. In the windows, Tim and Kaylee saw themselves inside the house. Obviously the mirror is trying to lure them inside. In panic Tim called 911 again. The operator said to have their father call. In despair Kaylee grabbed the phone and smashed it. There's no help coming. Now they will have to become much stronger again. In the past, Alan pulled out his gun. In the present, the brother and sister returned to the room and saw evil entities near the mirror. What happened 10 years ago is repeating itself. The brother and sister didn't even understand how the mirror driven them upstairs. Perhaps Tim was able to call the police earlier, so the mirror became more active. Now their main task is to hold on until the trap works. Events of the past and present intertwine. Marie tried to break into the room with a scared son and daughter. Kaylee was about to open the door, telling her brother to run. They ran together. Kaylee escaped through the window, but Tim stayed in the house. Kaylee waited for her brother for a long time. She couldn't leave him here. In the present, Tim saw a sinister entity in the form of his father. It's another illusion. In the events of the past, a gunshot rang out. In the present, Kaylee searched for her brother throughout the house but saw a sinister entity in the form of Michael. Kaylee tried to ignore it. In the past, the brother and sister tried to destroy the mirror but in vain. Their father interfered. Tim had to do something to save himself and his sister. Taking the gun, Tim did what he had to do. Dozens of sinister entities surrounded them. In the present, Tim found himself near the mirror. In the past, Kaylee saw her mother in the reflection. When Tim destroyed the mirror using the anchor, somehow the sister ended up there. She passed away of her injuries on the spot. In the past, the brother and sister made a promise to each other that when they grew up, they would destroy the mirror. It would be revenge for their mom and dad. The police arrived. As before, they arrested Tim. He shouted that it was the mirror's fault, not his. Of course then and now no one believed him. When young Tim was taken away, he saw his family in the window of the house, just like in the present. The mirror won again. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel not to miss more exciting new products. Also, the authors will be pleased if you leave your opinion in the comments.